everybody, it's Claire here from Sewing by Claire, and today I was making another tutorial for this dress here, which is a cashmerette rivermont dress in a scuba knit. And what I need to do now is to hem it, and I'm going to use my cover stitch machine, which is a JUKI MCS-1500N, and I thought that what might be useful is to record a standalone video of how to attach the hemmer and also then how to actually use the hemmer, because I did have a look myself to see if I could find anywhere that told me how to do this, and I couldn't find anywhere that did it. So if you've bought one of these hemming attachments and it's come in a box like this as pieces, then carry on watching, because we're going to attach it to our machine and then I'll show you how I use it for sewing in the round, because there's a couple of things that you can do that just make it easier for you. Okay, so you've got the two little screw things here. We've got this flat plate with this hook on the end, and then you've got this other plate here with a tightening screw that will then slide up and down. So the first thing we're going to do is put this multiple piece of metal. This is terminology is not great here, folks, but bear with me because it's just trying to work it through. And we're going to then sight this so that the two holes that are here through the plate of this one with the screws tightening adjustment on it fit in that groove, that hole there. So we're going to line those up over that section, and then when we've got one of our little screws, we're going to pop it through the hole, make sure it's gone through the sliding bar at the bottom, and then we're going to just sight it on top of our machine and tighten it up. Then we're going to take the other one, we can just then adjust this one slightly and we should be able to see the other hole, and that one there too should just screw in nice tightly as well. Onto this, there's two screw holes on the bed. So what we've got here then is we've actually got a place here where we can adjust the hem width. So it depends on how wide you want your hem. And we can also, just by moving this part here, we can adjust the hem on the other side as well. So it's a multiple kind of turn up. Now, there are some notches on the side of the here that you might have noticed or not. And I'm going to line all of mine up so they're together. Oops, will it work? Will it not? Yes, it will. And then I'm just going to tighten that up. And I think what that should give me, I'll tighten that one up and that one goes on there. That should give me a hem of about 3/4 of an inch. So where's my seam gauge? Where have I put that? Here it is. And so we're looking at this section here. Now we do want this section at the bottom here to slide down, because that is what's going to stop the fabric from going too deep at the bottom here. So I want that to be about 3/4 of an inch. So I'm measuring that one. And then I'm just going to slide this other one up just to meet it, just to make sure that I've got 3/4 of an inch on there as well. A bit more further up, not quite so far as that. Okay, there we go. And just tighten that stitch up there. So you can adjust the width of the hem that you want to use. You've just got to get used to using this one. So the bottom plate here, adjust this little bit just in here, just in there. That's like a stop for the fabric turning over underneath and how high you want that. And then this is the hem here where we're going to feed our fabric in. Now I am going to test it first because it's a while since I've done some hemming on this machine. I just want to make sure I've set it up for you correctly. So I get my tweezers, switch the machine on. Let's hope it's not going to white out for you completely because it's very bright. Let me just see if I can adjust my lighting to compensate. But then what you need to do then is find a centre place between two pins, and I use my tweezers to hold the edge of the fabric out, because what you want to do is scoop that in and around past this first kind of into this top bit, but underneath the second. So you want to have your fabric so that it's sitting with the underneath here put in place, and then that the hem of the fabric, the bottom of the dress or whatever you're sewing, is against the plate there. And then what we can do is, if that's gone onto the feed dogs, which hopefully it should do, remove that pin. I know you're supposed to start on the actual fabric itself, but for now we just need to work our way onto it. I'll take that pin out already. And as long as we keep our fabric to the underneath here, it should then catch the hem for us. So let's lift that up, let's swipe underneath, which is a bit difficult with the hemmer plate on, and then take it to the back and then snip the rest of our threads. And what we can see is that we're just slightly off, but that could be the way that it's going through, but it's neatly caught the back end of the fabric, and we've got that stretchy double stitch hem that we want to have. So I'm happy that the stitches are coping well with the fabric that I've got, and that it's catching okay underneath. I might just move that just slightly higher up, just as a little adjustment. Oh, if I can get hold of it, yes, and just move it slightly up, but only by a smidge. Okay, so what I'll just do now we've done the test, is I'm just going to get my fabric, make some room, Claire, is just get my fabric and just line that up so that it will all be ready to go. Okay, so I've just gone around my hem and I've just pinned it all in place at the 3/4 of an inch mark. I have found that this helps keep it consistent and helps it not to twist underneath. Obviously you can try it however you like, but this is the way that I would suggest it. I then tend to start on a side seam, so at the pin past my side seam I'll use my tweezers and I'll just help the fabric go into the top bend and then round and underneath into the second bend. So it's just a little bit fiddly just to get it through and under, but once you've got it, then you can thread your rest of your fabric underneath your presser foot, and you have got a double height lift if you need that. So you want to just manipulate your fabric so that it's lying flat going out the other side, and that it's coming through the machine flat as well. So once I've got that in place, and I'll take the pin out so I don't forget about that, and get my threads ready. So on all 3 threads, I've got 2 needles in, and I've got my underneath thread as well. So once I'm happy that's in position and I'm on a side seam, then I'll just pop my presser foot down and that holds it in place. Now I get to my foot pedal, and then we're just going to take it nice and steady. So we're going to start sewing, and then when we get to a pin, I'm going to take the pin out and then just keep sewing. And yes, you can argue that you shouldn't need to have to sew with the pins in, but I think otherwise you're going to keep checking underneath, and this way you've got a match point all the time to know whether your hem's going off. So again, we're at another pin, so I take it out, just make sure the fabric's all lying flat, and just go to the next pin. Take that out. Now coming up to a seam allowance here, so you do need to be steady while you've got those and make sure that that's going to feed over correctly. So do just have to take it steady with this bit. So I take it forward. I can feel that my seam allowance is still flat. Take the pin out. Just make sure that that's all nice and flat, because we want that to be nice and flat underneath, and let it go through. So there is still a certain amount of care that you need to take when you're using this hemmer. It's not automatic, if you like. Again, round to the pin again, take that out. I think what's good is that in between the pins I don't have to worry, because the pin's keeping it at the right seam allowance for me, hem length, and I'm confident it's going underneath the presser foot at the right height, and also that the edge of the fabric is staying in the fold here underneath, so that's keeping that all nice, and the mechanism presses it under. So coming up to another seam allowance here, so just take my pin out, and I'm just going to make sure my seam allowance is flat, just catching slightly, so just be careful of that, just help it lie flat through, and having the pin there just helps maintain that seam allowance. The pin. These pins are probably spaced about 2 or 3 inches apart, just it's just enough just to keep us on track. I'll show you what I do when I come to the beginning. Because none of the videos I saw showed you how to do that. All they showed you was how to sew on a straight piece of fabric. We know that most of the hems that we want are going to be circular. So we're coming up to the end now. Last pin out. So we're coming back up to where we started from. I'm just going to make sure my threads are together there. So that's all going to stay nice and neat for us. So we're going to carry on going forward, and we're going to look at where we started stitching as a bit of a pinpoint, if you like, and I'm going to just hesitate there. So we've got a seam allowance to navigate as well, so we're going to make sure the seam allowance is passing over the mechanism flat, which it is now, a little bit more. But you can't go any further with this mechanism that's tucked underneath, because obviously you've got your stitches in place. So what you have to do there is just take your tweezers again and just manipulate the fabric off the hook underneath. Just takes a little bit of wiggling to get that through and get that off. It doesn't want to cooperate because of course I'm on camera. There we go. Okay, so we take that off, and then I just rest it on top, and then I go forward again until I join on with the stitches that I've already got. And the idea is to just match those up again. Then I take my needles up to the top, lift up my presser foot, lift up the toe, swipe underneath and pick up both those threads, just give those a snip. And then I take my work out to the back and give the final thread a snip. And there we go, we've got our beautifully stitched hem. It's caught our hem very nicely all the way round there, nice and neat. And we've not got any bits to trim off afterwards, because that's absolutely just covered all of that edge. So that's the way that I do mine, and then I just poke these threads through to the other side, knot them off, and then just thread them through just to finish that off, because that was something else that didn't seem to be covered very much on the thing, on the videos I saw. On here now, what we're going to do with this now is we're going to just do a hem again, and we're on a quite a small amount of fabric here, because we've only got a small hem that I want to take on this one. So we're going to do the same thing again. So let me just get this one prepped up for you with the pins in, and then I'll show you how I do the cuff. So in setting up the cover stitch machine, I've loosened off these 2 front screws, and I'm just changing this now so that I can get 1/2 inch from there to the edge of the edge of the hook there to the little stopper inside. I can get 1/2 inch, which is the maximum I want for my cuff hem, and then I'm just going to tighten those 2 up, so that kind of controls what goes underneath. Then I can undo my top, the back one, and then slide that up so that it then matches how much I want to take over. And this is adjustable because of the possibility of the thickness of your fabric. So all I do then is going to do the same thing but on a much tighter curve, and I'm going to do this from the inside for this curve. So let me just turn my sleeve inside out, because I need to be able to roll this fabric forward again towards me. So I'm going to clip this loop. So I'm starting again at the at the wrist seam, but the underarm seam of the garment, I'm going to just tuck that through and round and underneath the presser foot, so that's all lying flat and coming out the other side flat. We want to start on top of our seam. It is quite fiddly, but it's worthwhile persevering with just to get used to doing this. So then once we're in the right place, I'm going to put my presser foot down. I'm going to keep my seams out of the way, the top edge of my fabric out of the way. I'm going to start sewing, and it's going to come through to this pin. You have to remove the pin, obviously, because it's going to take pressure, but you're going to have to keep rolling your sleeve forward to you as you go. Well, we've just jumped out of the over thing there, so just keep an eye on that as well. So just take it forward, just roll it back towards you a little bit more. Take the pin out, just take it away from the back and just roll it forward, making sure that you've got your overlap still. Edge it through, pin out. Towards that pin again. Obviously the cuffs are really tight, aren't they, to try and sew anyway, but hopefully you can see how easy this is making sewing this cuff really nicely. So again, we're almost to the start, so let's keep going until we get to that seam allowance again, until the start, and then I'm just going to use my tweezers again and just unhook the fabric from around that loop, lie it up on top, and then just keep sewing until those stitches are joined. Take my needles up, press a foot up, swipe underneath to pick up my threads, avoiding the hemming mechanism, snip through the threads and take my work off to the back. So then I'll I'll thread these loose ends through so that they all finish off nice and neatly. But again, there I can show you that we've got a lovely hem on the bottom of that cuff there. Just a slight variation here, but that's just about, as we said before, making sure that your fabric's wrapped around. So I hope that video is useful to somebody if you've not seen how to use the hemmer before. I think it's mainly just pinning it first. I find that really useful just to make sure that it's staying in the right place for me. And obviously, and that the fabric is not skewing as we're sewing, so that one's not going slightly sideways as you're sewing. The other thing that I think it's good for as well is that at the end, when you need to unhook the fabric from behind in order then to carry on sewing over the end to the stitches that you've already done. So anyway, just a quickie. Hopefully it's helpful to somebody. If not, it's a good reminder to me. So happy stitching everybody, and I'll see you all soon. Take care. Bye.